Right, we are now going to invite all 5 of those speakers to come up to the stage, which is just having a wee bit of a zhuzh around. Craig, good muscles. Let's give Craig a round of applause. So all 5 come up, and Tristan Kitchener is going to be our facilitator, as mentioned. I know we've got Anna, who was one of our speakers yesterday, and apologies to the rest of our speakers. As I said, my favourite speaker from yesterday, because he's the only one holding a microphone today. So just trying to butter him up. Again, if you've got any questions, fire them through on the app. Tristan's going to get through as many as he can before our morning tea break.
Great, thank you. We may just run 5 minutes over, so I hope that's okay with everyone. Full disclosure, I'm also an operating partner for Rock Partners, which is a Australian-based PE fund. Earlier this year bought Freshmax, so just to be clear. So look, this is going to just sort of encourage questions from the floor. There's a couple of mics out here, and we'll get through as many as we can. But we may start with you, Olaf, if there's a mic. I might just grab that, make sure it's on. So the question is, where do you see the biggest opportunities right now for capital to drive both profitability and positive environmental and social impact in horticulture?
Probably energy efficiency and mode shift. So what I mean with that is we're all aware of the challenges that the gas sector, the New Zealand energy system is in. So Mike Casey, you'll be all very familiar. I'm not going to repeat what he's saying. I can do it way better. Looks way better in this OneDry as well. But that's really where the biggest opportunity is at the moment, where you can make the biggest difference. I know not everybody can do it. It's challenging for some horticultural businesses, particularly the likes of hothouses, etc. But if people can do it, because energy is going to get harder, it's going to be more expensive, and it's going to be a little bit messy for a while until we've gone through that transitionary period as a country. So I think that's the biggest one. The second one would be resilience.
Okay, thank you. And then Charlotte, got one for you here. So is all Māori land managed through a trust? Can small businesses work directly with freehold landowners? Thinking about helping these smaller block owners of the sort of $5,000 revenue mark.
Kia ora. Yes, people do work directly with landowners or the administrators. So remember it moves from customary title to Māori freehold land under a set of owners. And then if it has a structure on it, you'll have an administrator, usually, and a governor. And people tend to, if you're in community, you know who these people are, and they'll connect you quite quickly. The main thing is to ensure that you're talking with the right people, right? You can find that out. There are ways of understanding what the structure is and who they are. But land, even small blocks, we have a lot of landlocked blocks as well, remember? So that's blocks where you've got someone who'll have a business entity here, and then you'll have a landlocked block beside them. We're trying very hard to ease the burden to get access to those blocks. Some of them are premium, beautiful blocks that are currently being grazed with no revenue back to owners. So it's a tricky place. But yes, you can work directly with them. Look to see whether they have a structure. Look to see who the administrator is, and have a cup of tea. That's as simple as it is. Have a cup of tea. Bring your genuine self to the front. Could I just put a 0.5 next to Olaf's energy?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we've got a dream around the corner a little bit. Minister Jones released last year $60 million into a supercritical program. Unashamedly, I'd like to see it on Māori land for lots of different reasons. But, if we're not reliant on the North-South Island link, if we have enough electricity coming in the centre of the North Island in a temperate zone, elevated temperate zone, with tons of heat coming off data centres, what does that allow for you guys as growers, right? So it's very real. The program's real. We have a natural environment of magma very close to the surface. So we're at sort of 2-3 kilometres depth to magma. Everyone else is at 12 to 30 kilometres depth. Let's imagine around the corner what that might look like for people like you.
Thanks, Sean.
Sorry about the 0.5.
Questions from the floor. If you've got a question, do stick up your hand and we'll get a microphone over to you. Otherwise, I will, you can send them through on the app. So, Con, we got one for you here. You mentioned providing exit opportunities for entrepreneurs. Do you foresee purchasing businesses across the value chain outside production?
Yes, yeah, we're kind of already involved. If you look at the hops side of things, we're a minority investment in there, and I think there's opportunities in the future for that to change in terms of what the makeup and ownership looks like in there, and that goes from obviously growing the hops, palletising it, making the products, exporting, marketing. So in that case, we're already doing that. And there's a range of investors out there. They're all looking for different things and have different motivations. So it's just a matter of kind of matching those up and pairing those with those people that want that vertical integration. Some sectors it makes more sense than others, depending on the industry structure. There's a lot of talk in apples and what Craigmore may or may not do long term. There's certainly some margins that exist in the post-harvest and exporting marketing side. That you don't kind of see back at the orchard gate. So those are the commercial business case and just thinking about that long term, whether that makes sense or not. But doing a pack house, that's quite capital intensive as well, and you need some, if you walk into a modern pack house these days and how it's automated, the capital and the expertise to run that are probably quite different to probably maybe 10, 15 years ago. So you've got to think about all those things as well.
Great. Kenny, your turn next. So we've got a question here. What are you doing to engage overseas capital? Is it challenging to get in front of the right overseas investors?
What's the second part of it?
Is it challenging to get in front of the right overseas investors?
Yes, it's always challenging to find the right investors in front of them and talk about your project. But then the first thing is to find the right investors. I mean, it's always challenging. So, but then the most challenging part is how to find the right opportunities to match with what the investors want. Most of the case, they doesn't match in terms of the structure or in terms of like the vision or in terms of like what the investment wants between the growers or the investors. It's always something that is you need to match, and it's always challenging, always.
Yeah. Thank you. Richard. Question here. Looking ahead 5 to 10 years, what do you see as the most significant shifts in how capital will flow into horticultural research?
Yeah, so I think the problems remain the same. We've got obviously on orchard, on-field issues that remain. Productivity is pretty keen to up productivity with continuing to minimise inputs. Those consumer traits in our breeding programs remain really important. I think what's going to be interesting, I think, is that how much we can use technology to speed up the research pipeline and how much investment will flow to actually enhance research. I mean, I gave you an example of digital air. It's, as you're all aware, it takes a lot of investment to make a large digital play. And the same goes for gene technologies as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see how much investment shifts to go into technology versus traditional biological kind of approaches to R&D.
Thank you. And I'm not sure which one who's this. It's probably aimed for you, Olaf, this question. But what is the role of industry assurance programs with environmental modules to be recognised to deliver sustainable loan requirements? Is there a pathway for recognition?
The answer is yes. So Yeah, it's a bit of a playoff scale, but I think you're referring to when your organisation or your entity is already subject to an environmental assurance program, perhaps for your partners, I assume. Very commonly used for us in the dairy sector, with some of the big processors having well-established, really strong assurance programs. We can sort of cross-reference those. The challenge that we have is that you kind of have to get it to a certain scale for us to kind of go and then kind of assess that third-party assurance program and whether that meets our requirements. But I think if the demand from our customers, for particularly the sustainable farm loan, which is applicable for horticulture, if the demand increases and there are particular programs that we're seeing our customers use, then I think we would run that to the ground and could potentially use that. So we're trying to make it easy. It's not incredibly expensive to do the assurance for most, and sometimes it's just simply a matter of kind of, and I know that's annoying, but sending us the same documentation, or sending our assurance provider, which is Assure Quality, sending them pretty much the same documentation that you would send to your other assurance provider. At some point, we might be able to just make this even a little bit easier. But it's not an incredibly expensive process. It's not meant to be.
Yeah. And I think whilst you've got the mic, there's a little follow-up here, which is Westpac also interested in investing in bioenergy as well as renewable electricity?
Again, answer is yes. Subject to lending criteria. So I think...
Read the small print, yeah?
Yeah. Subject to terms and conditions and lending criteria apply.
T's.
Yeah, look, I think as with all of these things, right, there's a continuum on maturity and bankability, right? And if we understand the market, if the contractual arrangements are sound, if governance stacks up, if the cash flows are right, ultimately, as a bank, you have, particularly in New Zealand, where we are so critical to the stability of the financial system, you have some pretty strict parameters in which you can operate because, as I keep telling people, it's your grandma's money we're playing with, right? So we can't just do certain things that perhaps other players could. But if the fundamentals stack up, then absolutely. And one thing we are doing is we are quite active in trying to understand some of those new and emerging sectors. We put a paper out, for example, on the blue economy, not exactly our major lane, but we're actually making a concerted effort of trying to understand what's coming down the pipeline. So bring us a problem and we'll see what we can do with it.
Yep. I've got a general question here, so sort of put your hand up if you'd like to answer this one. How are you all supporting growers to adopt new technology in order to be more sustainable and financially successful? Someone's got to take it. Richard, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I can make a start if you like. Trying to understand. I mean, I think adoption of technology is a really interesting one. I mean, we do some social science to understand what those barriers to adoption might be, and we also actually help Zespri, other organisations when they want to adopt something and they're talking to growers. We'll often go with them as researchers to help with the adoption process. So I think there's two parts to it. We'll want to understand what barriers to adoption are, and then also help with the actual adoption process. But it's going to be really interesting. I mean, technology, we've got some major issues in the horticultural area around labour, and obviously technology is an obvious solution to that. But adoption is going to be a huge issue. I can see Agritech New Zealand over here, who will be obviously at the front and centre of that adoption process. And then all the conversations we've been having this morning about capital come into play as well. I mean, that's going to be a big change. I mean, we're very used to OPEX spending for people rather than CAPEX spending for technology.
Thank you.
Maybe I would like to add something. From investment banking point of view, that unless you are working directly for a tech company or technology startup, that you are always looking only to promote or to improve certain technology. But then from business point of view, our stand is always to do anything that could improve the productivity, improve the margin, and how much that you could operate your business better and more efficient. That's the way that you should invest into your business. No matter it's simply a new cultivars, or is orchard management software, or electrified your operation. But then the end of the day, we are all looking at the bottom line and the cash flow, how you could like improve your business operation. It's from our investment point of view.
Thank you, Kenny. And Charlotte, I've got one for you here, which is what models of partnership or co-investment have proven successful in aligning cultural heritage with market-driven sustainability goals?
Great question. Look, the models that we've been using, I spoke about the Huakiwi model, and that was very much looking at land that was sitting in maize and trying to getting better value back to the owners, better connection with community. But I'll talk a little bit about a model that we used, that we applied in the far north, and that's in an area that's looking like it will turn into a horticulture hub, and that's Kaikoe or Māpiri area. I can see some nods in the room, so a few of you already know that there's a couple of big dams up there and some beautiful growing land. And that land was sitting there with very poor return to the owners. That there wasn't, it's in dairy farm at the moment, it was a joint venture. So it was actually money from the trust and money from the Māori trustee together into a joint venture. And it crashed and burned in the first 5 years. It was worryingly crashing and burning. But reinvestment into the farm, patience by the investors, so patience by the owners, patience by the Māori trustee, who's not very patient, and then we came out the other end. And it was so gratifying to be able to say to them, okay, we're calling in the loan now. You guys, the conversion fund, which is another little area of New Zealand policy which was challenging, where the Māori trustee ended up as a large owner in blocks, that's all paid back. The debt, we're ready, we negotiate a position, here you go. And I'll take my money back and reinvest it into other projects like the Huakiwi. The Huakiwi, the Seacom model, the Ian Craig, the Te Kaha Gold, those are all models that protect Māori land. Hey, they make money, don't you worry, you get your money back, but it's being a patient investor. And I'm talking about that cup of tea and bringing your genuine self to the table. That's where it starts. And then, you know, what do you need? Look at this beautiful piece of land up here. Look at that water, right? We're here intergenerational. I hear that a lot. We're here for the long run. We cannot be alienated from land. So we really fit well with horticulture. We do fit well. And that's why I think that a lot of these investments on whenua Māori, I'm not talking about general land, I'm talking whenua Māori, why they work.
Thank you. So I've got a general question here, which is a grower focus. Transitioning from plastics to more sustainable materials often comes at a cost to the grower. How can the sector support the growers undertake this transformation? And I guess this is in the context of consumers want more sustainable products, but nobody wants to pay for it, so it gets forced down the supply chain. Perhaps tied into the value proposition of what they're doing, but any comments around that, how that transition can be supported? Well done, Kenny. Good on you.
I'm starting the first. I know very little about that, but I think that's related to social license. So social license, like any other license, like the resource consent, you got from the council, but then social license is got from your community. Whether you have the right to operate, whether you will be able to continue to operate, that all depends on that. I mean, be a good citizen. Always like supporting the green thing, reducing of like plastic. I think that's always the right thing to do.
I'll have a crack as well. I'm gonna requote something I heard 2 years ago at the Agri conference across the road, and it was a really interesting conversation. It wasn't specifically about this, but it was sort of a similar discussion. One participant, kind of, I'm rephrasing here, we do sustainable product, but no one's prepared to pay more. Other participant, well, but they're still buying. And then third participant, this is not about value add, this is about value at risk. And I guess the point here is just a different way of sort of rephrasing what Kenny is just saying. I mean, sometimes if your customers want a certain thing from you and you aren't prepared to give it to them, then the question is ultimately, are you prepared to risk losing them to maybe somebody else who might give it to them? Or is it just simply something that you might have to pay forward in a way? Our contribution here, waste management, is one of the things that we put on in our criteria. So for us, it's one of those factors. It's a social license thing, and it's not always necessarily. Consumers don't always decide on the basis of science. Plastic bag ban was a classic example, but it's simply something that people just expect, and sometimes we just have to sort of take those things.
Thank you. There are a lot more questions coming in. I'm afraid we are out of time. Thank you for the questions. I do believe you're all going to be around for morning tea in a bit of today at least, so do please grab them one-on-one if you would like to. Otherwise, if we could all thank the panel.